Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our monthly HRNet webinar. I want to, again, welcome all of you and ask that you enter the audio pin that showed up on your screen. If it didn't, you can click the phone icon, and it should be a star, 3 digits, and the pound sign. And that just will enable me to unmute you if you want to ask a question by voice. If you do want to unmute yourself because you want to ask a question, press star 6 and that will do it. We use the chat window primarily, but again, you can ask a question live. You just type your message where it says type your message here and press enter, and your message will be sent. You have the option to send your message to everyone or one particular person on the webinar today. And if you click the down arrow beside send to everyone, you'll see that list. So you can send it to everyone, the presenters, or an individual. So if you're new to the OHR team, then welcome, and I hope that you get a lot out of today's session. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Tanya Simmons. Tanya, let me unmute you. She's going to speak briefly. She's not on the agenda, but here we go. Going to speak about the leave without pay. I mean, not the leave without pay, but the employees with low leave balances.
Yes. Michelle, am I good to go?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, everybody. I have Stacy Ferrer here with me, too. And we want to just briefly touch on the emails regarding a question that we received about leave administration. We got some feedback yesterday and today regarding that question. And to us, it's evident that we need to just take a look at all of your responses and come up with a standardized process that will assist you with administrating your administrative process with leave, and that would include leave without pay. Now, we're going to do that. We don't have a lot of time at this point because we were added to the agenda, but it was probably a good idea to add us to the agenda to kind of address your questions, which are very important. But one thing I will say before I'll turn it over to Stacy regarding leave without pay is that the timing of leave without pay is very imperative. So what I mean by that is when you know someone is about to hit leave without pay or go on leave without pay, and you know that 14 days it starts to affect their benefits, you want to send that letter out to the employees, and we'll go over that next month, or some sort of notification to that employee. But more importantly, we need that HR5 in the system, FMLA system, so that we can then move forward and process that in PEMAS. Stacey, did I pull in everything that?
Yes. That leave without pay, once it hits beyond the 14 calendar days, there's a big impact to benefits in regards to health insurance and retirement benefits that employees are due. So it's extremely important that that HR5 is done and it's done timely. I think that's the big thing for payroll. We unfortunately on the end of employees getting overpaid for leave without pay situations, whether it be the intermittent docking or the leave without pay, especially when it's not submitted on time. And although the employee should be aware of their leave balances, unfortunately that's not always the case, and we end up dealing with a lot of upset and distraught employees. So I just want to encourage you to manage your leave timely.
Yeah. Like I said at the beginning of the statement, we just wanted to just address the emails. We appreciate them, but we will get back with you with a more standardized process. Michelle, back to you.
All right. Thank you, guys. Okay. Micah is up next. I believe, let's see here. Oh, he's not on yet. Okay, so Brian, I'm going to move you up on the agenda as we spoke about. There we go.
Okay, can you hear me okay, Michelle?
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Just wanted to come on and remind you all that, October 1st we started the new process with the background investigation where a primary notification would have to be sent out from our office to you all first before you actually put together a start date or onboard the individual candidate, the top candidate. And, of course, we started at October 1st. Also, a reminder that we did put together some revisions and updated the offer letter that was the offer letter template that's on our internal webpage. Basically, the section dealing with background investigations, and Michelle has pulled it up here, and we also sent it out in the email that we sent out last week. We changed some sections to the background investigation, some of the sections dealing with that. It kind of speaks to their continued employment, etc., and also it still requires that they get a copy of the policy itself. That was the big change, and this particular letter would go out the same way. Once you get the primary notification to us and you determine a start date with the top candidate, then this letter would be issued to them. Out in the districts, we've had several districts that have been doing this new process for about a month now, and what we recommended last HRNet was that you give the top candidate, whoever the top candidate is, a kind of like a verbal offer, if you will, but explain to them that we have to do a primary process, background check, or a quick background check, whatever you want to call it, before we actually are able to onboard them. And of course, in the HR 15 section that deals with the applicant that they're supposed to read over, which is on the second page of the HR 15, it actually explains the process itself. We didn't devise a particular letter for that. From what I understand from the districts that have been doing this for about a month, it seems that the verbal offer has been working okay. However, some individuals ask for a letter, I guess, for particular, for whatever their purposes of needing a letter is. So you can certainly devise some type of letter. The only thing is we recommend not to put a start date in there, because we do not want the individual to resign from their current position until we know they're actually eligible to be in a position for us, because they could get to a point to where they can't rescind their resignation or something like that, and they're kind of stuck without a job. Just because they're working one job doesn't necessarily mean they'd be qualified to work for a position here at the Department of Health. And we come into that situation, every now and again. We do come across individuals that would not be qualified either by law or just by the requirements of the duties versus information that we pull in the background investigation. But all in all, it seems that it's been working okay. And of course, if you put together a letter and you want us to take a look at it, you're more than welcome to email it to myself, and I'll take a look at it, and I'll run it past Mike as well, just to make sure everything's good to go on it. But other than that, Michelle, if you could go ahead and move to the CMS information. The next section I'm going to talk about is dealing with the CMS checks that you all have been completing out in the district on individuals when they're hired. All right, this is a change, so make sure you listen up here. You're going to have to continue conducting the CMS checks when the individual is onboarded. So if you look at the page here, this is the page on our website, internal website, under the recruitment section, and it tells you exactly how to go about, and it has, I think, links to the databases of going through and checking the individuals in the CMS databases. I think one's an awards database, and the other is an exclusionary database dealing with Health and Human Services. We check those on the primary, but the reason we have to have you all continue checking those out in the districts when they're onboarded is for two reasons. One of the big reasons is the retention of the record. For federal audit purposes, they require that the first check that's done when they're actually onboarded be retained in their personnel file, I believe is exactly where you all have been keeping those, or in whatever the recruitment file that's there listed out for retention on the webpage there, but I believe it was in the personnel file. But the problem is we don't necessarily do BIs on everyone in the agency. There are some positions, especially some interns and volunteers and some lower level positions, that would be a sensitivity level 0, so we wouldn't actually capture a BI on them or run a CMS check on them because we wouldn't have a BI completed here. So, but they would still need a CMS check. So that's the second reason that you all will need to retain that function of actually checking them when they're onboarded. So that is a big change, and as we continue on with this, we'll continue to brainstorm. But as of right now, what we've determined is due to the retention of the record and due to the fact that we do not conduct BIs on everyone in the agency, the CMS checks will need to stay out in the districts for right now in offices. Of course, if something changes, we'll certainly let you know on that front.
Brian, are CMS checks only for new hires, or are they for new hires and transfers?
They are for they're for anyone who's actually coming into the agency. They don't necessarily have to be compensated. From what I understand, they don't have to be compensated. So it could be a new hire, could be interns, volunteers, any individual like that. As far as individuals transferring around in the agency, I'll have to double check, but for right now, I know they're being checked monthly, centrally here in the central office. So I believe it's safe to assume that the individuals who are actually working for us currently and are transferring are actually being checked monthly as well. I'll have to gather more information on that, but I will find out exactly the answer for that, and we will email it out on the HRNet email.
Any more questions for Brian?
I've got one other thing to go over.
Okay.
I always try and end on a good note. But one good piece of information that's come out. Those folks, it's probably deals more with individuals up in Northern Virginia, but we are now able to query or request Maryland driver transcripts. So anyone that is onboarded or is the top candidate, if you will, or whatever the case may be, that has a Maryland driving record, we no longer have to wait for them to provide a copy of that record. You can go ahead and have them fill out the HR 15 like normal and send that in, and that will suffice as far as their authorization to let us pull the Maryland transcript. And we have the ability now here in our office to be able to pull Maryland transcripts. These are driver transcripts we're talking about. So that should speed up the process. That will speed up the process in processing these primary BIs. And it also helps us out when we go to do the every 6-month check on out-of-state drivers that we monitor. Instead of them actually having to provide a copy of the Maryland transcripts, we'll be able to pull it now automatically. So for right now, the only state we're not able to get is California. So if you have somebody, it doesn't happen that often, but it does happen on occasion. We'll get somebody that has a California driver's license and transcript. California folks will still have to provide their own transcript. So a little bit of good news there. But at any rate, are there any other questions? Let's see.
There's a question about the HR checklist to include the CMS responsibilities. Possibly, if it is, it's in the, well, because the checklist starts when the offer has been made and accepted and everything's legit. The person's definitely coming. So is CMS part of onboarding or is it pre-onboarding?
It would be onboarding, as
Okay.
far as I know.
So I'll add it to the before the 7 days before the person starts.
Right. We may need to plug it in there on the start.
Okay. All right. So I'll take care of that, Paulette.
Yeah, we'll get together on that and nail that down. Yeah, I see. I thought we had to do that prior to them starting and making an offer. Yeah, that's you'll have to look at on the online to see if that's the requirement. I believe that's true. I think that is a requirement. I just know we automatically do them in here when we do the primary. But yes, that may be something, and you can actually you'll have plenty of information at your hands once you get the BI and the recruitment packet in anyway to be able to do the CMS check prior to hire. But because it's a name search based check anyway. But I'm not sure if it says it in there if it's prior to hire or not.
It says it must be done after an offer is made, but prior to them starting. So
right.
Looks like I could add to the checklist. But again, these are items that need to be completed after you've offered the position. So this is kind of that pre-onboarding checklist, if you will. To take care of the RMS responsibilities, the CMS verification, the FMLA piece, and the background investigation. So this is something you'll want to refer to.
Right. The other question, did I hear that CMS checks are only required for districts? No, it's required for offices as well, as far as I know, districts and offices. Districts and offices. There's going to be some information coming out dealing with CMS checks a little bit later on. I don't know when, but soon, from what I've been told, that will go a little bit further in that verification process. But it's districts and offices. It's anybody that is onboarded with VDH. And of course, they don't have to be paid. They don't have to be compensated. They could be compensated. They could be volunteers. They could be interns. They could be contractors. And it's mainly because of the agreements we have with the federal government dealing with grant monies and things like that. We have to do these checks. Right, after offer prior to starting work is when you do the check, and that's online there. Use the resource that we have on our internal webpage to kind of keep up with that.
Yeah, and I'll update the checklist.
Yep. So if you have any other questions, feel free to email me or give me a call, and I will answer them the best possible. And I will check on the CMS checks for transfers, and we will email that information out. I did write that down. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Brian.
All right. You're welcome.
Jeff is going to cover some updates on performance evaluations or reminders. Jeff? Jeff, enter your audio pin. I can't hear you yet. And email from Jennifer in January said that CMS check is done after the offer is made, but prior to start date to ensure there are no conflicts.
Michelle, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Performance evaluation. 'Tis that time of year. Micah had sent out some guidance regarding the evaluation process. So just a few reminders. Evals are due to us by October 19th. We definitely prefer that you put them on a flash drive or a thumb drive instead of sending, 15 emails. with attachments that we have to unencrypt. It's just cleaner, it's easier. Excuse me. Please attach or include the completed spreadsheet, and I believe Deb emailed regarding some columns that need to be added. One second, sorry. The rating, the supervisor position number, the reviewer position number, a column for EWP, since those are due November 30th. You can just go ahead and use the same spreadsheet for both of those audits. And then also any comments, like so-and-so retired or is on transitioning to long-term disability or whatever, so we can have an idea of what's going on with them. So please include for your extraordinaries and belows, you're going to need the additional document. So please include that as well. If folks are submitting self-assessments, be sure that those get changed to performance evaluation, because if it says self-assessment, it's not the true evaluation, so that will definitely need to be changed. So if you wouldn't mind to double-check those, that'd be great. Trying to think of anything else. I think that's pretty much it, but
there are two questions,
yeah.
Jeff.
I'm sorry, let me go to my other computer.
I can read them to you. So if an employee appeals the performance evaluation rating and it would take them longer to review and investigate in order to determine if we're keeping the rating or changing it, but that won't be complete by the 19th, how should they note or report that to us?
Put the rating that they were given with the evaluation in the column. Make a notation in the comment section on the spreadsheet, because I want to say we have to have everything keyed. Give me 1 second, sorry. I want to give you the exact date that everything has to be completely done. We have until the middle of November in order to make any changes. So if there is an appeal or, whatever, and there is a change in the rating, then that has to be done. We would need that by the end of the first week of November, so we could be able to get it in the system, because after November, I want to say it's the 19th, we can't make any changes in PEMAS. So
okay.
What was the other question?
The second question is, does the flash drive have to be an encrypted flash drive since the evaluations are already encrypted?
Okay, as far as encryption goes, yes, please encrypt the evaluations. As far as the flash, if you're mailing them, and also if you're emailing them, the flash drive will need to be I want to say the OIM has a policy regarding flash drives. It's whatever their policy approves is what needs to be used.
Which I assume is probably an encrypted flash drive.
Yeah, I want to say that part of that IT policy includes something about flash drives. So whatever that policy states, and I'll research it and look it up and email everybody. But whatever, we just need to follow the guidelines that they put forth. So, however, if you are in Richmond or the Madison building, if you hand deliver the flash drive to either me or Gloria, then they don't need to be encrypted because there's, it's, the chain is intact. There's no, breach for possible confidentiality issues. Plus, that'll save, you guys in the building one less step and save me one too.
Any more questions about performance evaluations? You're welcome, Shay. Okay. All right. If you think of anything, email Jeff later, and he'll get back to you. Thanks, Jeff.
Michelle, I have one more thing. In regards to the EWP, I know Micah sent out another communication regarding the EWP, and since you guys already went through this earlier this year, it should not be an issue. So, if you can put them all on one flash drive, the EWPs and the evaluations, and then whatever other documentation that you have as far as, like the belows and aboves and all that, that would be fantastic. And if you want your flash drive back, just let me know. Write a note. We'll mail it back to you. That's it.
All righty. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to Nancy. Give me 1 second, Nancy. Nancy?
Hi, Michelle. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Hi, I just wanted to take some time today to discuss some RMS issues, items, some things that I've been seeing repetitively, and I know some of y'all have some repetitive questions concerning RMS, especially since it upgraded over the summer. The first item I wanted to talk about is using your working its identifier in the working title when you submit a posting. I just wanted to bring that up because it's very helpful to Michelle and I to have that in there when we are going into RMS to approve your postings. It makes it more efficient for us. I know a lot of you already do that, or you're using the identifier that's attached to the position number. So thank you. We appreciate the effort you're taking on that. Keep up the good work. The second point I wanted to talk about was on the applicant workflow, the workflow state. It needs to be the option of under review by department. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is because if the workflow state is set to some other option, then you won't be able to see your applicants. And I know that sometimes can cause some stress and some anxiety when you know there's several applicants out there because you've gotten a request of someone wanting to make sure that you've got the application. So if you can make sure that the applicant workflow says under review by department, I think that will help alleviate those situations. And then if, for some reason, if it slips through the cracks, when you go in and see 0 applications, you'll know that that's the reason, unless you actually don't have any applicants for that posting, and that's a different issue that we'd have to tackle. So on my second slide, I just wanted to say real quick about contacting your generalist. You still need to do that like you did in the old RMS to let us know the position has been filled. One thing that has occurred, and I've gotten several questions about this, is that when the new system came about, hiring managers don't have the same access to change some of the applicant workflow actions, or the applicant statuses, as they used to be called in the old RMS. And these are two examples I know that are the most frequent: not interviewed, sent email, or not hired. I know there's been some confusion around that. I did mention it once a while ago in an HRNet, but it was in July, and it was right after the 4th of July weekend, so I'm sure a lot of people were out of the office. But at this time, the hiring managers overall statewide don't have as many options to update your applicant statuses as you used to. So you're getting to a point where you can't go forward to change it. So right now you would have to contact your generalist to get that changed. And I would recommend just sending an email to Michelle or myself with the position number in either the subject or the body of the email, because if it's a very general position like office service specialist or fiscal technician, public health nurse, we have so many of them that, the position number or the posting number would be critical to make this change. And just send us the information saying, we hired so-and-so, the other applicants can get changed from interviewed to not hired, just so we can go ahead and assist you with that process. I did talk to the DHRM about the possibility of getting this upgrade, or maybe not upgraded, but enhanced for the VDH. And at the time, they had a lot of volume going on their end due to the rollout of RMS. And then over the past few months, we've had a lot of volume in OHR. So I'd like to revisit that with the DHRM, but they're very cautious about making changes because it would affect not only us but hiring managers statewide. So we'll have to see if they would make that change. They wouldn't give me any type of guarantee, but we'll have to revisit that with them and go forward. But for the time being, if you could do what I have just suggested, that will be the most efficient way to change the statuses that you no longer have, change the workflow to the status you no longer have access to in RMS. And I know it's frustrating and it seems counterintuitive, but we'll just have to work with what we have for the time being. And the information I have in bold, I stumbled upon this recently, that if you go into RMS and change the workflow action to recommended for hire for an applicant, that all of us at the OHR who have full agency access actually get an email about that. And it took me a while to figure it out. And it's a question I want to send to the DHRM to find out why that happens. But I think for the time being, if you use a different option, I don't think that triggers any emails. So just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. If you're doing that, but you didn't realize that it actually triggers an email. So to alleviate an extra email in everyone's inbox. So those are the main points that I have for today. Definitely, if you have more complicated issues or something, another RMS issue, feel free to contact me or Michelle, and we can walk you through that. So, I can answer the question about the visual race gender screening sheet. We are working on guidance for that. So right now you can just leave that as is right now until we can get information out to the VDH overall. That's a good question. I can put that in the mix with my questions to the DHRM as well. I didn't realize that you all weren't getting any email notifications, so thanks for letting me know.
Oh, I'm muted. I was talking. The question, but you took care of it. Okay. All right. So I think those are the only two questions. Any more questions for Nancy about RMS? All right. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Michelle.
All right.
Have a good day.
You too. Okay. We're moving right along. Okay. I am up next. And I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of the the benefits guide and the how you can get to it and what's in there about FMLA. So you know that the FMLA training for supervisors is due at the end of the month. Supervisors must complete it by the 30th, but you have a resource as well, and it's located in 3 different locations. So if you click on Onboarding New Employees, you'll see the benefits guide for HR analysts there, and there is the FMLA section, number 3. And on this page, you have the overview, you have administrative responsibilities for 2 different scenarios. You have forms, common questions, key contacts, and resources. And this goes into great detail about everything you need to do. It talks about the requirements, which I think most of you, or eligibility requirements, I know most of you are already familiar with that, but just in case there's somebody new, especially for those work units who have business managers who also take care of the HR functions who may not have an HR background, here's a step-by-step guide, everything you need to do, and when you need to do it. So the timelines, examples, cover letters, templates, links to the federal forms, everything. Tracking spreadsheet, everything you need is on this page. So again, one of the ways you can get to is by clicking Onboarding New Employees and then the benefits guide, which is number 7. You can also get to it by clicking Helping Employees with Life Events. And say, for instance, there is an illness of a parent, child, or spouse. There'll be 2 things that you need to do: invoke FMLA and tell the employee about the leave share program. And when you click Invoke FMLA, it's going to take you to that benefits guide, that section of the benefits guide. And I've also listed it under completing administrative tasks. So it's the 3rd bullet, benefits guide for HR reps. So there are a couple of different ways that you can get to this FMLA section of the benefits guide. So definitely take a look, especially if you're new or unfamiliar, because it's very important that we adhere to the timelines set forth by the Department of Labor. So are there any questions about that? Just want to make sure people knew. We have a lot out there. I know it's hard to keep up. Okay. If there are no questions about that resource, then I am going to turn it over to Deb. Perfect. You're welcome. Deborah Foster. There we go. Hello? Deb?
Good afternoon. How are you?
Good. You're welcome, Mark.
I just wanted to take a few minutes this afternoon and go over a couple of items, and they're very much related. So as we go through, if you have questions, put them in chat, or you can ask them of me. What you're seeing on your screen is the job aid regarding adding a new employee to maintenance. As many of you are aware, because of the type of system we have, a web-based system, and the fact that it holds records and or tables in the system itself for you to pull from, you need to do a lot of transactions in 2 steps. And this is if you have an employee who is new to the FNA system, you need to key them into the maintenance side of FNA under employees. And this just goes through the steps for you. There are quite a lot of steps, so we try to be detailed. If we stop right here, there are a couple places when you're, keying in an employee to maintenance, where it allows you to take the time to reflect to see if this employee has a record already in the FNA system. And it's very important that we make sure that we don't duplicate records, because it does cause it can cause a lot of issues when they're setting up roles within the system, when they're keying T&E, when we put in the email address. So we're trying really hard to concentrate on only keying the employee record one time. The first time, what it's going to do, Michelle, if you'll, there we go. It says, does employee have prior service with VDH? And this pops up before you key in a new employee record. what we're going to be changing this to, and what I need you to remember when this pops up, is that we want to know if the employee's record is in FMLA. And that doesn't mean that they've had prior state service with VDH. They could be an intern with VDH. They could be a contractor with VDH. But anyone who has had to have access into the VDH FMLA system should be in here already. And so this is the first message that you received to ask you to try to verify, do they have a service with us, or are they really in the FMLA system is what it should say. Step number 5 and number 6, when you say no, they don't have prior state service and you want to start a new record, it still shouts out at you in red font, before creating a new employee record, please check if a prior record exists for the employee. So what I wanted to talk to you about is how this job aid includes how you key in someone, but how do you know if someone has a prior record if they're not already in your work unit? So if you go to step 22, which I put below all the other steps if it is a new employee, but so step 22 is how you search for an employee that is from another work unit. So you want to pull the employee's information into a transaction, but you don't want to duplicate the maintenance record for them. This is how you check to see if they're in the system at all. When you go to your HR5 and then new for a new HR5, you'll see at the bottom the gray button that says new for an employee from another work unit. You'll want to click on that button, and once you click on that button, you'll see a screen that looks like this, and it's only going to ask you for the Social Security number. When you put in the Social Security number, and if the employee has a record already in the system, it will pull all that information over for you to use it on your transaction, and you will not need to key a new record for that employee. So that's how you're going to know for certain if the employee has a prior record. And I encourage all of you to do the Social Security number search, because it could be that a candidate hasn't told you that they were a contractor 2 years ago. It may not be on the application detailed to that extent, but you will know if you put in the correct Social Security number that they do or do not have a current record with us. So I really encourage you to use that. If you run into any issues while you're doing a transaction, when you've pulled someone over from another work unit, pick up the phone, give me a call, send me an email, but I'm more than happy to work with you through any of the issues that might come up. And that's basically how we're going to avoid duplicate employee records. I can tell you this much, we aren't able at this point to delete the duplicate records. Well, I am working with OIM, and hopefully eventually we will be able to delete them, but we are not able to do that at this time. I know some people have put duplicate records in by accident, have realized it, and have contacted me, and I'm sorry, they do need to stay out there. We just need to work with that data so that we can make everything work within the system. Let's see if we have any questions.
Yeah, we have 2. They're similar.
So we have a question. We don't enter interns' addresses, et cetera, in FMLA, nor do we have an employee ID number for them. I'm not sure I understand the reference that interns would have info in FMLA. So there are 2 different types of interns, as I understand it. One is paid and one is not. So your VDH intern that's a VDH worker would be in the VDH worker database, which is different. But if you have an intern that's paid, it is in the FMLA system. So you could have them in one or the other. And it's a good point. We do have 2 separate tables. One is for VDH workers, and I'm not talking about that because we can't pull that information into FMLA for transactions, et cetera. But the other table is the employee table, and that's the table that I'm referencing here. Lisa says if they were a contractor, we would not have a Social Security number in the system. That's a good point, Lisa. So if I'll modify what I said earlier. If you think that they've been a contractor or have any indication that they may have worked here in any capacity, contact me and I'll be happy to look that up for you. Any other questions about that?
And I want to piggyback off of this topic in general, Deb, because I forgot. Deb and I are working on an FNA kind of 101 online training module. And so after HRNet today, or when I get the recording and everything squared away, and I send that follow-up email, I'm also going to send you a link so that you can let us know what are like the top 3 things you wish you knew about FNA when you first started using it. That's going to help us. We have like some general ideas of what we want to include in the module, but that will give us your perspective, the things that, you know, were difficult or to figure out or unique from your perspective. So just be on the lookout for that when I send that email, probably tomorrow morning.
Thank you, Michelle. And so since we don't have any other comments or questions on that, Michelle, were you able to put together that question about HR 14 for me?
I didn't type it or anything, but we can just ask it and have them type it in chat. Okay, so the question that I'd like to pose to you out in the work units who are tasked with completing the HR 14 forms, which is the separation form. So when someone leaves the Virginia Department of Health, not for someone who's transferred within, someone who's leaving our health department, this form needs to be completed. And I do audits every month. I just finished a quick audit of September, and only 59% of the HR 14s were completed for those who separated in September and were due in HR 14. And I run into this on a regular basis, not necessarily the percentage so low, but that we have a hard time getting these forms into us. And so the question I wanted to pose to you today, and if you could be honest and chat, put it in chat, what are the issues that you are having when it comes to completing the HR 14 and sending that out to the separation distribution list? I can imagine, although I'm not certain, that it could be that you follow up with other managers within your work unit to see what systems they had access to, or other people are responsible for parts of the HR 14, and so you have to wait for them to complete it before you send it to the separation distribution list. Those are just guesses. So if you could put in chat what those obstacles might be, that might help us in trying to make it an easier process for everyone involved. And that is all I have. Okay, so go ahead and take a minute to type those responses in chat for us. Thank you, Deb.
Thank you.
So again, the question is, what challenges do you run into that prevent you from submitting HR 14 for employees who separate? Please, as many of you chime in as possible, that will be great. And again, you have the option to just send your answer to me. If you click that down arrow beside send to everyone, you can send to presenters, and I'll just get it if you're shy. That's fine. Okay. So I only have a few. I'm waiting for some more. So what kind of things are you guys waiting for? What's preventing you from sending that form to the distribution list? Okay. Is everybody or is anyone unclear or not familiar with that form and the process around it? Let us know that as well. Because I think that you fill out the top part and then I think page 1 or part 1, and then you email it out to the distribution list. But in order for you to fill out that first page or part 1, you have to know certain things. Any more? I know there are more. What are you running into as far as sending that HR 14 out? Right, so they fill in Part 1, Section 2, and parts of Section 3 before sending it to the distribution list. Tell us all of the things that you're running into so we have a good picture of what's going on with HR 14. Give you another minute or so. Okay. And ditto is fine. Helen posted that. That'll help us know that, which issues a lot of people are having. And so far, it looks like a lot of people are having some similar issues. Okay. Yeah, again, you can send a message just to me if you don't want to type your message publicly, private, send to presenters, and I'm the only one that's a presenter right now. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move on with the agenda. I'm going to send it over to Squig. A second, somebody is unmuted. Let me fix this first.
All attendees are muted.
Do not. Hold on. I'm trying to find her. There we go. There we go. Squid, can you hear me?
Michelle, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Hi, everybody. This is Squig Moore, and I just wanted to spend a couple of minutes going through the update that DHRM has made slight changes to the grievance procedure manual, and they're relevant just simply for the grievance procedure itself. When someone has filed a grievance against a decision made by the agency, as you know, there are procedures that they must follow, and DHRM has updated a couple of them with items that I think are important for everyone to take note of. The first is the timeline for filing a grievance has changed. It used to be that when a grievance files a grievance, and that grievance was filed 30 days or 31 days after the decision from the agency, that no matter what, that grievance would be dismissed by DHRM. And that included filing a grievance on a Sunday. In a court of law, if you file something on a Sunday, the applicable date is the following Monday for filing. If the due date falls on a Saturday or falls on a Sunday, the relevant date to file something would have been the following Monday. Same with a holiday. DHRM's rules used to state that if the filing deadline landed on a state holiday or a weekend, didn't matter. You still had to have it in. You still had to have a fax receipt or an email indicating that you had sent your grievance to the responsible person or to the correct person on the 30th day or before. So that's a change. It now bumps to the next business day. And so the relevant section states that if a deadline to file a grievance or an administrative review request falls on a Saturday, Sunday, legal holiday, or day on which the state office is closed, the appropriate filing may be made on the next business day. So I know a couple of the work units around the state have had that issue come up, and it's just something to take note of for purposes of agreement. The second big change is that it used to be that a grievant had not complied with the grievance procedure, they had let days lapse, or they had decided to conclude the grievance but they hadn't notified the agency that they were concluding the grievance, the agency had to send them a notice of noncompliance. It was just a form letter that we would send to the grievance saying, you are not in compliance. You've not submitted information to us or the grievance form within the 5 work days that are required. Therefore, we consider you in noncompliance. And what it used to be, what DHRM used to require, is that the agency then approached DHRM after the noncompliance letter had been issued to ask DHRM for a ruling on the noncompliance. So the agency sent the notice of noncompliance to the grievant, waited a period of time, grievant took no action, made no indication of his or her intentions, and so the agency was then responsible to go to DHRM and say, could you please declare this grievance non-compliant with the grievance procedure and close the case. Now the grievance procedure manual does not require the agency to do that. The agency does not need to send notification to DHRM and ask DHRM for a ruling on the noncompliance. The language now allows the agency to consider a grievance, out of compliance once they've sent the notice of compliance, and there is no need to ask for a ruling from DHRM. And so the language is as follows. If the employee does not submit the grievance form A to appeal the agency head's denial of qualification or to conclude a grievance within 5 workdays of receiving a notice of noncompliance, the agency may consider the grievance as concluded. So that's a big change for us. That happens fairly frequently. We send out letters of notice of compliance, noncompliance, and then we hear nothing from the grievance. So now DHRM is saying, you don't need to come to us to get it clarified. You just need to send them a notice of noncompliance, and then it's considered concluded after a period of time. Now the grievant can, several days later, approach DHRM and say, I didn't know I was out of noncompliance. I've gotten a letter from the agency. I'm sorry, I was out on leave. Now I wish to proceed with my grievance. And I suspect that DHRM will allow that individual to move forward. But this makes it so that the agency does not need to take that extra step unless the grievant takes an extra step in order to avoid the conclusion of his or her grievance. The last thing that I wanted to alert you all to is more of not necessarily from the grievance procedure manual update, but a ruling that we received not too long ago regarding filing deadlines along the lines of the 30-day deadline that I talked about before. DHRM's guidance to us is that when an agency decision falls on a particular day regarding layoff or regarding some sort of other issue regarding a job change or duty change, that the grievant may file a grievance on or around or after the date of the effective date of his or her job change or layoff or whatever the change in position is. And that's important information for the agency, because the agency is, of course, hindered by that in some ways. The agency has notified, if the agency has notified an employee that there's a job change or that there's a layoff, that notification comes quite some time before the layoff or the job change or the job modification occurs. DHRM's guidance to us is that it doesn't matter when you've notified the employee of the job change or layoff or job modification. What's relevant for the purposes of filing a grievance is the date that the job change or layoff becomes effective. From that date, 30 days may run before the grievance may file a grievance requesting a hearing on the issue of whether or not the agency's decision to lay off or change his or her job or job duties is a grievable offense. So that's just guidance we've received that I thought was relevant given the filing deadline as well. So I think that's everything that I have. Does anyone have any questions of me?
I don't see any yet. Any questions for Squig? Okay. Oh, when was the change effective?
The change was effective September 1.
Okay. Any more? You're welcome, Q. All right. Thank you, Squig.
Thank you all so much.
Okay, I am going to turn it back over to Brian. He needs to share one more thing.
Hey, Michelle, can you hear me okay?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. So anyway, I'm back again. Of course, this is Brian's Background Investigations. The question came up earlier in HRNet when I was going through my presentation asking about CMS checks on individuals that are transferring. And I reached out to the individual who is in control of the CMS process and got an answer. And I just wanted to update you all on the answer. And the answer is internal transfers, internal VDH transfers do not require the CMS check. However, if there's a transfer that is external, so another individual, a candidate that's coming from another agency, they do require the CMS check. But if they're internal transfers from district to district or district to office or whatever the case may be, they do not require a new CMS check. So that's your answer. Okay? And if you have any other further questions on that, email me or whatever the case.
Thank you, Brian.
You're welcome.
Okay. That is all that's on our agenda today. Thank you guys for your time. We went over just by a few minutes. I think, Tanya, can you help Pam? Because you might have an idea by looking at the list. Tanya keeps that spreadsheet database of all of the Common Health coordinators for the whole agency, and she can probably glance at it and tell you, if it's mostly HR people or somebody else. Tanya, let's see. Tanya, can you get with Pam? So give her an idea of who's doing it for each work unit, kind of overall, big picture. I don't know if she hears me. Pam, I'll follow up with Tanya in case she didn't hear me, because she has a spreadsheet, so she can give you an idea. All right. Okay. All right. Thank you guys for your time. We will talk to you next month. Have a great rest of your day.